Oh, there's Greg. Greg just walked in.
Oh, yeah. Unbelievable. We got a very unique class.
All right, gang. We're going to go ahead and start. Let's make sure that... Oh, he's good. All right, we're going to call the meeting to order. Did we collect the sign-in sheets are still there? Is everybody signed in? Yes. And the approval of minutes for the August meeting, they're all in Arbiter. If I can get a motion to accept those.
Motion to accept.
Second? Motion passed. The shirts are delayed. It's part of a bigger order between our association, the State Association, and the Central Florida Soccer League. So they'll be ready on Wednesday, so I'll be picking those up. So in the next meeting, we'll be passing those out.
Do we have a sample of what they are?
The shirts?
Yeah.
We can put them on our website. They're black, and then they have our logo right over the heart. And I had a couple of questions for this week. People were asking me about Arbiter, about their profile. They're concerned about putting their information out there. On my profile, it's my zip code, my picture, my cell phone number, and my name. If you're worried about that, and you can follow that same format, especially your phone number. Some of us, I like to text message as opposed to email for the game. So if we could all do that, we'd appreciate that. And then in our October meeting, our education committee will be covering Arbiter and the app and any other questions you have with Arbiter. At this current time, did we do that? You sent the message regarding Boyan's wife. So regarding, we all know about Mike Stone. We heard about him at our last meeting, and then Boyan, one of our friends and one of our fellow referees, lost his wife this week after 10 months of being married to cancer. So I just want to take a moment today and just do a moment of silence for her, or for both of them, which is there right now. Okay. And for those that weren't here or don't see it, if you want to look on your phones or whatever you have with you, we are streaming live today. Our last meeting was our first meeting, so we just kept it in-house, recorded, see how it went, and we loaded it up into our YouTube account. But currently it is going live. Thanks to our buddy David over there. And at this time, we're going to get our Vice President up here to discuss the fitness test and the classic. And Ann will discuss insurance processes, and Eric will cover, Michelle can't be with us tonight, so Eric will cover his duties. Fred McCoy.
So we are all planning on the classic. I've already sent some dates to Keith. Waiting to hear back. If I can remember the dates here. Y'all are familiar with the classic. We got Orange County versus Seminole County predominantly, with the other counties filling in the gaps. This year, I believe we're doing it in Tom Burton. It's Tom Burton Classic. Probably that same week, that Wednesday or the week before that, on the other Wednesday, we'll be doing the fitness test. Dates will go out, notices will be made. Are there any questions about either of those events? I might have them. What's that?
Once we email the captains and so forth for the classic, let's don't do like we did last season where we had them set and then all of a sudden guys show up and then they're all jumping on one side. And
That's why I'm going to be captain, and don't worry.
Who are the captains?
I think Hassan is Seminole.
No, we're on the same county, so it's all good. We're gonna put a stop to that.
Eric's gonna cover that.
Harris will take Orange County.
Who is? Harris?
But they don't steal our players.
All
There
right.
you go, that's the point. Yeah. It was me and Harris on the same team, and 3-4 guys show up, and it's like, whoa.
I was on a roster and I lost my position somehow. Sure.
That's all I ask, thank you.
All right. Any other questions?
What's the location?
Same as always, Trotters Park. That's the goal. Harris. Dates, I can't find them on the phone. It's October.
Usually a Friday, right?
It's going to be a Friday. Yeah, he said Friday nights are usually pretty good for them. October 28th.
October 20, I'm not gonna be available.
October 21. That's what I told. Okay, October 21st.
I'm not gonna be available that day. I don't know. Somebody's gonna jump.
Someone else needs to be a captain.
Good. Okay.
I have college.
Well, once we have a date firmed up, we'll get with you and sort that out. Which date, Hassan? Which date can he not be available?
I'm available only in December.
Well, we do this before the season starts, so.
That's what we did. I'm not available.
Okay. Okay. So you can't do it. So do you have somebody in mind you want to replace you? He did it already.
You guys have college.
Ah, all right.
So,
I don't have it.
Are you Seminole County? All right, we'll work on that later. And the dates will come to you shortly. That's it. What about it? Right, October 12th or 19th. Until I hear back on firm dates, I really can't. You know, that's what we're trying for. But it will be a Wednesday most likely, because he said that's not a problem. So, any other questions? Nope. Ann is up. Eric is up.
Hi, I'm just going to give you a brief summary of, there's insurance that FHSAA carries for officials for any sanctioned event, whether it is, as long as you are wearing an FHSAA patch, if it's a tournament or whatever, it's covered. It's an accident medical expense benefit with the maximum benefit being $50,000 with a $250 deductible. It covers heart and circulatory maximum benefit of $2,500, a malfunction benefit of 10%, physical therapy and chiropractic benefit of $50 per visit, physical therapy maximum per injury $2,000. For medical equipment, the maximum per injury is $1,000, and outpatient prescriptions per injury $1,000. If it happens to be your mouth that is hurt, it is the medical max, and accidental death, God forbid, or dismemberment is $2,500. Now, in order to claim this, you need to go to the FHSAA site, to the officials page, and hover over the top, and at the very bottom, it says officials page. At the very, very bottom of that, it says officials insurance. And on there is a number to call, and you will tell the woman, Donna, what your circumstance is, how you came to injure yourself, and she'll send you the appropriate forms for your injury. So, especially those of you that don't have your own medical insurance, I know 2 of our members have taken advantage of it in the past, and it had very good results. One other thing on the side I want to tell you is that everybody has to have a picture on Arbiter. Our contract with the counties require that every individual that walks on that field have a picture in Arbiter. And Ryan Adams from Osceola called to remind me, because those coaches are going to look you up in Arbiter. So please don't say I don't have one I don't like. Just put a picture on Arbiter. Yes. Can they upload what?
The phone number,
For who?
the school,
They're on the site.
they don't work.
They're not up to date.
They're not updated at all.
Okay. All right. Well,
I mean, they just want to throw out a picture.
They care about who's walking on the field with their kids. So we'll take care of the phone system, but the pictures have to go up. Okay?
Are we covered for middle school games and freshman games for the internet?
Freshmen, yes, not middle school. Middle school, you don't wear your badges. They're not sanctioned. Okay? Freshmen are sanctioned. You wear your badges for those. Because those are high school games,
Nothing for middle school.
not for middle school.
Actually, just to give you a little background on Boyan Soptovich, he was a member of this association for a number of years, moved over to St. Pete when he got married, and trying to think, I was over there March. He actually he was married March of not this past year, the March prior, so what, March of 2014? And he found out 10 months after he was married that she had cancer, and it's really a sad thing. Hopefully maybe Boyan might move back to Orlando. I know it was a big thing for him to move over there. My memory is sort of escaping me right now. What's the name of the referee from Romania that moved to Oregon just recently?
Radu.
Yeah, Radu. Yeah, he was in the wedding and that kind of thing. It was a really nice day. So very sad. I'm supposed to do a coin flip for you guys on the jerseys, okay, to find out which color you want. I don't have a coin, and I asked about 5 guys over here. They don't have one either. So I'm just going to do it this way. The color's going to be either pink or royal. Okay, pink or royal. Harris, since you're the new captain, okay. And Hassan, if you can't make it, get yourself another captain, okay? All right, thank you. I know you will. All right, so go ahead. I'm gonna. Okay. All right, so the pink is going, and you are Seminole, Orange County, and Osceola County, Seminole and Lake. Okay, you got that, Ann? No. Orange County, and there's an Osceola, yeah, and there's Seminole and Lake. So he's going pink, and.
I'm always given because he lost last year, so that's why.
I agree with you, Harris. Real men wear pink, okay?
That's why I spoke up.
That's
because I
right.
stole 4 of our players.
All right, one last thing. The Christian schools that we do, they are not affiliated with FHSAA, okay? So if you issue a red card during the game, don't send it to Gainesville. They're not going to do anything with it. Send it to the board, and we'll deal with it. And we will contact Jim at Heritage School. He's the head of their entire league. So if you do issue a red card in the Christian schools during the, I guess you want to call this the fall season, summer, fall, send it to the board and we'll get it to Jim. Any questions? Can you? I guess yeah, I don't need to bend over. Thank you.
Okay, we have reports of committees. Currently, the only one we have is a grievance. Are they, Brian here? No? We have one that we're dealing with, correct? Okay. And education. Sorry, Annie? Or?
All right, a couple things. First of all, we have a guest speaker tonight. We're very excited about that. But for administrative things, the review for the exam will be on the 2nd of October here, 6:30. We will have pizza, which I probably shouldn't say after we learn about nutrition, but. So we're flip-flopping. You used to have the meeting on the first Sunday and the test review on the second Sunday in October, so we're flip-flopping. So 2nd of October, we'll send out emails. Please be here. We have good success when you guys come and help study with us for the exam. So I'll turn the time over to Siri now.
All right, guys, so something that we don't like to talk about is nutrition. Okay, I can't speak loud, okay. I'll just say it like that, okay. So, nutrition. We all think we eat right, but some of us know we don't. So today I brought a guest speaker, a professor from the UCF, Professor Valerie Schultz, who is a registered dietitian. She also has done clinical work and also has done sports nutrition as well. So please listen, pay attention, and Professor, come right up. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Give me 2 seconds to get this up. I'm not going to find that other one right now. Oh, I know one. Sorry, it's upside down. All right, never mind. I won't worry about that other page. Find it at this moment.
That'd be a good one.
Very good. All right, as Siri said, my name is Valerie Schultz. I teach at UCF. I've been doing that since the fall of 12. And prior to that, I was working there as an adjunct. I've been a dietitian for about 30 years. And I've never done a lot with soccer. That's never been my thing. But I have had personal experiences with sports, have done not a full marathon, but a half. Swimming was my sport in high school. So I always laugh about it because I really improved a lot. I improved so much. I was so terrible when I joined the team and had improved enough by the end of the season that I actually got the trophy for the most improved. But it was only because I was so terrible when I first started. But in any case, sports is fun, and so what we want to talk about is some of the things that are important, if my understanding is correct, for the people that are going to be on the field in front of you. And yes, there may be an athletic trainer, yes, there may be someone else who would perhaps have medical authority over if there's an injured player, but it's really important that you all have some understanding about that too, because do I have it right that you all will be kind of running around out there too? You're not just standing on the sides, yeah, okay. I didn't think so, okay. So, all right. So here is our kind of agenda for this rather brief presentation. That first of all, we're going to talk about fluids. We're going to talk about what to drink and when to drink it and how much to drink. And also it is quite important, one of the things that you can consider on these ridiculously hot days that we have here in Florida is it's really useful because hydration is actually quite individual. We can give out guidelines, but it's still rather individual. So one of the ways that you can individualize that for yourself is to actually weigh yourself prior to the event and then weigh yourself again after the event. Okay, so we will come up to that when we move along. But anyway, we're going to talk about fluids, and then we're going to talk about macronutrients, otherwise known as, people throw macros around. So that's the percentages of carb, protein, and fat. And then we're going to talk about the pre-event meal. And I do encourage interactivity. So if you guys have questions, please do not hesitate to ask. We will certainly try to involve those in the process of this presentation. So first of all, it's really important that we recognize dehydration. Dehydration can come up fairly quickly. If we look at a water loss of 2%, can really impair the person's ability to do whatever it is they're out there to do. 2%, we could look at that very easily. A 100-pound person, which most of you in the room weigh more than that, I understand, but a 100-pound person, that would be a 2-pound water loss would be a 2% dehydration. So for a 200-pound person, then we're looking at a 4-pound water loss. Right, so that's going to impair capacity to do work. If we hit a 7% reduction in weight from dehydration, that of course is very bad, and you're going to have the person collapsing in front of you. That's not good. Obviously, fluid does a lot for us. One of the things it does is dissipate heat. So I want to just kind of have some understanding of, for each person about amounts of fluids and how much they weigh. So let's do this. I brought a few props, all right? So first of all, this is a 1-liter bottle, all right? And this is 500 milliliters. So this one is half of what this one is, all right? Okay, 1-liter bottle. So the whole liter bottle is 1,000 milliliters. So can anyone tell me, and I bet the people in this room who perhaps did not grow up in the United States would know this more than other folks, can anybody tell me what this bottle weighs? I'd like to know how much it weighs in kilograms, and I'd like to know how much it weighs in pounds.
1 kilogram.
Okay, it weighs 1 kilogram, very good, okay.
2.2 pounds.
And 2.2 pounds, excellent, very good, thank you very much. So then this one, which is half of that, then weighs approximately 1 pound, right? It's actually 1.1, but close enough for government work, right? Okay, all right. So 1 pound, and the other thing that we say, and I tell my students that I try to get them to have little things to help them remember. Siri can tell you one of the first things that we did in the class that she's in is I had them start looking at metric to English conversions, because everything that we do in the medical field has to be done in metric, whereas the patients are normally thinking in English system, right? So one of the little rhymes that I give them is that a pint, because this is a pint, this is 2 cups, or 1 pint, 16 ounces, a pint's a pound the world around. So that's one of the things to recall about fluid. So anyway, we will get to the amounts in just a moment. So those are some of the things that will help people with fluid. So this is a hydration schedule, and this talks about what we would use to hydrate and when we would use it and the amounts that we would talk about. So I'm not going to read it. You guys can do that. You're educated folks. Okay, so in general, when we're not having our heavy-duty exercise, we would like to use just plain water to hydrate. That is the very best thing that we can utilize, because we don't need extra sodium most of the time. We get plenty from our food, and so plain water is mostly it. So a couple of hours before the activity, we would want to have several cups of fluid. You can always gauge hydration by your urine color. So as long as your urine is a very light straw color, that's a good thing. And then about 15 minutes before, another cup, perhaps. And of course, all of this is that we do need to know where the restroom is to be able to deal with these amounts, but it is very important. And then during the actual activity, we want to use a diluted sports drink. And you guys know the names of the sports drinks, so I don't need to bring those up to you, although I do have a couple in just a moment. But I'm going to talk about for a minute why, in the next slide, why we're talking about diluted amounts. All right, and then afterwards, we would use plain water again, and you can see now we're looking at amounts that we would replace. So remember I said a pint's a pound, okay, and this is the same as 2 cups. So we would say a pound equals 2 cups equals 16 ounces equals 500 milliliters equals a half a liter. So those are all equivalencies, and that would help you know how much to replace depending on how much weight you lost. Okay, questions? Comments? Okay. So it's a very good way to gauge your hydration. All right. So moving from fluids to talking about carbohydrates. First of all, when we're talking about the side of athletics as endurance athletics as opposed to strength athletics, which would be, people who are doing lots of resistance type exercise. So we're talking about in soccer, I assumed we were talking about running a lot, endurance athletics, okay? So in order to avoid glucose depletion, we would want to actually eat fairly high on the carbohydrate. This is for people who are actually doing a lot of running. And again, I don't know that I fully understand everything that you all do, but specifically for the soccer players, this would be appropriate. So this is just showing about 4 to 5 grams of carb per kilo, and then I've done an example, so a 70-kilo person, then I went in the middle, I said 4.5 grams of carb, or about 300 grams of carb per day, or 100 grams of carb per meal, and I'm going to show you some examples of what 100-gram carb meals look like. They're not that huge. And then glucose during the activity, so in a diluted sports drink, those are for activities that last longer than 60 minutes. If it doesn't last longer than 60 minutes, we normally don't need any kind of a sports drink. Plain water will be fine. But when it is lasting more than that time, then we do want to replace potassium and sodium and the other electrolytes in addition to the fluid. Plus we want to have some glucose. Carbohydrate-rich foods immediately following the activity. This is the order I'm going to go in. I've got some more information on each one of these. And we want to train our muscles to store glycogen. So we can do that. Way back in the day when I first started running in the mid-70s, it was all about carbohydrate loading, but we don't really do that anymore, and now it's about just tapering training prior to the time of the event, making sure that you're still eating your same carbohydrate amount. All right, so what does a 100-gram carb meal look like? These are just some examples. You can see that the amounts that I have noted there are not excessive. A cup of cereal and a cup of milk and a banana, and then down here this is basically a sandwich and an apple with, now fig bars are one of the things that are actually strongly recommended for refueling during the event. So that's why I noted them here during the lunch meal. It is something that is pretty high carbohydrate, but it is also a soluble fiber, so it's not going to go in, it's going to get in fast, but not super fast. Yes, sir?
Amino acids in water. How do you feel about amino acids in water?
Okay, yes. Okay. Right. Okay, so that, of course, amino acids, of course, are the building blocks of protein. Okay, so they are a separate macro from the carbohydrate part. I'm not a big fan of single amino acids. I think they can cause more harm than good because people can get the whole rest of their protein synthesis mechanism out of balance if they take too much of one single amino acid. So I'm not a fan of singles. I do feel that a whole protein supplement can be utilized if it's by anyone effectively, as long as they're not using that on top of a diet that's already high in protein. Okay, because when we're talking about endurance, and you'll see in just a few moments when I show you that, I have a slide that compares different studies that were done. It's a classic study that was done comparing diet composition, that it really requires a higher carbohydrate level to continue to have output of energy. Okay, all right. But so I'm not a big fan of definitely not single amino acids, but the whole proteins could be used as long as it's not, as long as somebody's not eating 10 ounces of chicken and then using a protein supplement on top of that. It's just not necessary. It's a waste of money. Yes. Yeah. It would depend upon how much. Okay, now are you talking about branched chain amino acids?
No, because you said amino acids, derivatives that you mentioned, protein.
Uh-huh.
And they recommend certain amounts in
Right.
water.
Right, yeah. But they're using that for replenishment during an activity?
Yes.
No, because during an activity, your protein synthesis is stopped, basically. Your muscles are busy working, and you can't do protein synthesis until after the activity is done. So there wouldn't be any need for that. Okay? Right. Yeah. Right, okay. All right. Thank you for your question, though. All right. So those are just some examples of what, and I haven't really filled out the whole meal with it, the fats and so forth that would normally be in there. But I was just trying to show amounts that would give you the carbohydrates that we're talking about. So it's not excessive, okay, but it's enough. And some people I know have shied away from carbohydrates. They say, oh my gosh, I can't eat carbs. They quote unquote make you fat, which is ridiculous, okay? we need them for our energy sources. As long as we don't overdo on calories, we're fine. All right, so I want to talk about a prolonged event where we have what our needs are for carbohydrates, about 30 to 60 carbohydrates per hour. And again, we can use our diluted sports drink to get some of those carbohydrates. Now, why did I say diluted? This is why. Now, osmolality, this word here, big fancy word, it basically just means concentration. So it's just looking at how many little particles are in that fluid, right? So in order for the fluid to get out of your stomach, which is what we don't want it to sit in your stomach because that's a very uncomfortable feeling, and obviously it's not being absorbed if it's just sitting in your stomach. So the osmolality should be somewhat less than the osmolality of our blood or of our plasma, right? So if you look at the two brand names here of the two different sports drinks, you can see that they are actually higher in osmolality than plasma, than blood. So this is not what we want really for the fastest absorption. We want it to be a little bit more diluted than that. So how could you achieve this? Okay, a couple of the ways that you could do it: if you had a bottle of water and you had drunk, say, half of your bottle of water, then you could dump some of the sports drink in there and have a diluted thing that way. If you were in charge of having one of these sports drinks for a whole team and you were doing a cooler and you were using the powder, you could just make it more dilute than it calls for on the package. Just make it slightly more dilute, like maybe add like 20% more water or something like that, okay? And then that would be absorbed in a better way and have less abdominal or gastric cramping than some would experience with the more concentrated versions. All right, so we want to get about a half a liter, again, a half a liter, 16 ounces at least per hour. So obviously you're not going to glug, well hopefully you're not going to glug this whole amount at one time. You're going to do it, as we noted in the previous hydration schedule, you're going to do it about 4 ounces every 15 minutes. And that's how the athletes should be getting that in. Yes, sir.
We're in Florida.
Yes, that's
So
right.
Does this change? And then our average is 2 games per day.
Okay,
So, and we're looking at 90 minutes per game.
okay.
So does this change the fact that we're in Florida and we're out for so long?
Okay, well, so you would still be over that for that hour and a half, or 90 minutes per game, you said, so that for that 3 hours, then you would want to be getting that at least 16 ounces of that diluted every hour. So that would then be 48 over that whole time. Okay, 48 ounces, right. Okay.
We have a question from the internet.
Yes, sir.
So they're asking if the drink can be heat up or warm to room temperature or body temperature to be absorbed better, or cold water better? Or
I have heard that question before, and I've never found any data to support either direction. I think, this is opinion now because I haven't found data to that. I think the person should just do what is most comfortable for them. Okay, and for most people that means a little bit cooler than your body temperature. So, right. But I haven't ever found really good data on that. All right. So about this much every hour. Okay. All right, so glucose after the activity, if we want to have glycogen storage, if we want to replenish our glycogen storage, which we generally do, okay, glycogen is stored not just in your muscles, but it's also stored in your liver, okay? So we would want to have some sort of high carbohydrate food pretty soon. You can see within 15 minutes is when you have the highest glycogen storage after the activity. So somebody, let's throw out some examples. Yeah. Beer does have about 13 grams of carbohydrate for regular. The light beers range anywhere from 2 to 9 grams of carbohydrate. So it's probably not going to meet our total carbohydrate needs, although we could certainly include it in our carbohydrate. Okay. But let's talk about some foods now for a moment, okay?
I gotta go to the car real quick.
Yeah. Right. So give me some ideas of some foods that would be something that you could have with you, which would be easy to access, that would help to replenish this. I'm sorry? Well, yeah, but okay, so here's the problem with French fries, okay? All right, they're high in fat, so they're going to sit in your stomach longer because of the fat's going to retard gastric emptying. So I want some things that are kind of low in fat, but are also carbohydrate sources. A bagel, okay, would do the trick. What about fruits and vegetables? Give me some of those. A banana would be excellent, okay? Apples, bananas, and mangoes, absolutely yummy, okay? Right. So the fruits here would be excellent things to replenish ourselves with right after the fact, okay? Because it's going to give us potassium and it's going to give us carbohydrate, both of which, and plus all the other nutrients that come along with fruits and vegetables. And if you've ever looked at the data, the pretty dismal and pitiful data as far as what Americans are doing as far as the numbers of fruits and vegetables that we're eating, it's pathetic. We all need to do a little bit better. So fruit, it would be an excellent thing after that. So later on, you can still replenish glycogen, but it is not going at as great a rate. Okay, this is the study, the comparison of the studies I was talking about. This is a very classic study where if you look over here on the left-hand side, I guess I don't have a pointer to that there. Okay, so if you look on the left-hand side where it says type of diet, that is fats and proteins. This would be someone who is not eating any carbohydrate. This would be kind of like an Atkins type diet, a low carb, high protein diet, okay? And then a normal mixed diet, which is what most of us eat. And then the bottom one is a high carbohydrate diet. So the way they did the study, they gave these three arms, the people, they gave them that type of meals to eat. And then they had them come out and exercise, and they basically said exercise until you cannot put one foot in front of the other, until you've exercised to exhaustion, okay? And you can see the differences there on the right-hand side, that the people who ate the high carbohydrate diet were able to exercise for a much longer period of time than the people who ate the lower carbohydrate diet. And it's just in bar graph format down there for you at the bottom. Also, for those who like pictures like me, okay? All right, so when we're talking about activity, we do need carbohydrates to facilitate that process. All right, so if we're looking at things that would occur prior to the event, we want to eat something that is high carbohydrate and low fat. So I kind of gave you some of those answers there. Why would we want to eat something that's low fat? Right, because if it's higher fat, it's going to stay in your stomach longer. Your stomach has to hold on to it. It delays gastric emptying. So some of the same fruits that we talked about would work here. The bagel that this gentleman mentioned would work here. So can anybody think of some other examples, things that they would like to, things that are easy to take along? I'm sorry, my hearing's not the best.
Granola bars?
Granola bars in general would probably be useful. Now, I do want to separate, a granola bar is separate from what they talk about like energy bars or what do they call those? I guess they call them protein bars. In some cases, some of the protein bars are very, very low in carbohydrates and they're almost all protein. The proteins we want after the activity because that's when the protein synthesis is going to kick in after the activity.
How about eggs?
Okay, eggs are actually a very high quality protein. Now you would want to, depending on when your activity was going to occur, you probably would want some proteins earlier in the day, but when we're just prior to the event, just prior, like within half an hour or so, that's when we would want just the carbohydrates. Yes, sir? Yes, pasta is probably, might be a little difficult to bring along, but yeah. Yes. A sandwich with maybe just not much filling, that it's, kind of a thin sandwich, yes, would do the trick too. Yeah, the fig bars would be, that would indeed be high in carbohydrate and low in fat, okay?
I have a question.
Okay, yes, sir.
With games starting at 5, 6, and 7 p.m., a lot of us don't have time to go eat dinner.
Yes.
beforehand. If we're going from work or school straight to game time.
Okay,
How can, what, I mean.
okay.
I mean, we're starving at the end of the game.
Sure, I bet you are. Okay, so this is good information for me because I don't know, wasn't aware of that sort of scheduling. So if you have a game starting at 5, what I would suggest to do would be, if it was possible, to eat a late lunch that day. You know, eat a late lunch, a fairly substantial late lunch, okay? And then you could take this pre-event thing along with you, some of these things that we've suggested, right? And you can have some of those in between, because isn't there some time in between the games, maybe 20 minutes or something? Okay, right. All right, so then you could have some of those in between, and then of course you were probably going to want to eat something later. Now, given that it's, you know, moving on toward the time when you might want to go to sleep, we don't want it to be a hugely heavy meal. So to me, I would think that something like a nice big salad would be good after the games, because you're going to meet some of your vegetable needs. It's going to fill you up, but it's not going to be so high fat that it's going to give you reflux or anything going to bed. So that would be my thought. Okay. All right. Okay. So pre-event meal, so we covered that. So this is just talking about how we utilize, and I'm going to show you a chart in just a moment, how we utilize glycogen. Glycogen, of course, is our stored glucose that's sitting in our muscles. So in the first 20 minutes of our moderate activity, we are using up about 1/5 of our available glycogen. And then once we hit that 20-minute time frame, that's when some of the fat that we are carrying along with us begins to move into and start being utilized. That's if there is sufficient oxygen. So if we're, you know, getting that good breathing going, then that's when we're going to utilize the fat. And so in most cases, I don't think people will be actually hitting the wall as far as losing glycogen. But let's just look at that chart and I can show you. Oh yeah, so I put this one in here then because it's just shifting gears from talking about carbohydrate to talking about fatty acids. And again, this is going to show you, the chart I'm going to show you is going to explain that. Now, I don't know, I don't know if I can make this any bigger or not. But in any case, I will try to give you some direction on taking a look at this. So first of all, I'm going to point at the slide, so I'm going to just go tell you what I'm going to point at, so because I'm going to be moving away from the microphone as far as their taping of this. So I'm going to show you about the 50-minute mark and then go to the 25-minute mark on here. I think you can all see the 100-minute and 200 minutes, and then the red line is somewhere around 4 hours. So this is when people normally would, quote unquote, hit the wall at 4 hours. But I'm just going to go and show you some differences here, and then I'll come back to the microphone and say those again. Because I don't, can I take this off?
You got a $1,500 cord there. Hold on.
Okay. I think I got it.
No, you don't.
I don't? I'm not going to go real far.
Take this with you. Put this in your pocket.
Okay.
That cord is $1,500.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. All right. Okay, so about 50 minutes here, and then so if we break that in half again, about 25 minutes. So these are the fatty acids here, all right, and this is muscle glycogen. So this is when we first start exercising, this is what happens is that most of our energy is coming from that glucose that's coming out of the muscle, all right, and it's some from the liver too, but in any case, we're just looking at muscle right here. So it is just really peaking. And this is all, a lot of this, some of this is anaerobic, but we won't get into that. But so in other words, it's mostly glucose that's being utilized. And then at this point in time, we start having a decrease, and you can see there's an attendant. It's like the fatty acid, the calories coming from fatty acids are really moving up, and the calories coming from glucose are really moving down. So at that approximately 20 minutes is where the fatty acids overtake the glucose. So if we have continuous activity during this time frame, that's when we are now starting to use more fatty acids. And the fatty acids keep going throughout the whole time frame, so we're utilizing them. This is blood glucose, which goes up a bit and then sort of stabilizes here. And this is muscle glycogen. And you can see it's very, very steady, and it goes and goes and goes and goes and goes and goes and goes until it's gone. And when the tank is empty of carbohydrates, that is when the person can no longer go another foot in front of the other. Okay? We still have fatty acids. We have a lot more calories stored as fatty acids. If that were all we needed, we could keep going. But when we run out of glycogen, that's when we stop. Okay? So, I hope I didn't hurt the cord. Okay. So that was all I really wanted to show you about that. And that is actually the extent of my presentation for this evening. I wanted to keep it fairly short and be able to take any other questions that you all might have. Yes, sir?
How long does it take to stabilize that you get out there?
After this?
Yeah.
Okay. The person would need to eat at that point, okay, because you're out of carbohydrates completely. So this would be, to visualize this is the people who are like running a marathon and they get to the end and it's like that tragic, sad thing. They're like, 100 yards from the finish line and they just fall flat on their face and they just can't go any further, okay? And they didn't finish because they ran out of glucose, okay? So this is why on our endeavors that we're running and going and going and going for long periods of time, it's important to have, like I said, that diluted sports beverage is going to have some glucose in it, and it's going to help keep replenishing. Yes, sir. You had a question?
How does age affect
I'm sorry?
age?
Yeah, right. None of us are. Yeah, I'm probably older than most of you here. So, I don't have any data to say. I don't know all the age groups that were included in this presentation. I'd have to go back and look at the original study. So I'm sorry, I can't answer that one. Okay. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Any special consideration for somebody who has celiac, for instance, because nutrition is completely different for someone like that?
Right. Yeah. Someone who's dealing with celiac, did you say? Okay. Yeah. Well, of course, you know the things to stay away from, but you can still get high carbohydrate foods that are gluten free. So other than that, no, there shouldn't be any other issues. Okay. Other questions? Yes, sir.
So if we have a game in the morning at 10 a.m.,
Mm-hmm.
we're expecting to run 7.5 miles. What would be some meals that we can do the night before stuff we run into large breakfast?
Okay. So your game is at 7 a.m., you
10
said?
a.m.
Oh, 10 a.m., okay. So, yeah, so you could, like you said, I'll just backtrack that way. So you could eat a pretty decent breakfast at 8-ish, shall we say, okay, right? And your meal the night before wouldn't really need to be any different, okay? Right. Yes, ma'am?
This might be kind of silly, but I know that you were saying like slow absorption, like it starts to have it absorb fast. But what are those negative effects of it absorbed, like of the protein and all that stuff absorbed as well?
Okay. Well, we were really focusing on carbohydrates
Right.
rather than proteins, yeah. But proteins are absorbed a little bit more slowly. So your question was what negative effects?
Yeah, so what you're saying is if we don't eat something within 15 minutes, or like let's say we eat an hour later, it absorbs a lot slower. So what are the negative effects of it?
Okay, now the time frame was about replenishing of glycogen, right? And so that happens very quickly if we eat carbohydrates. Okay, I guess I'm still, ask your question again because I'm still not quite getting it.
So what, I guess just in general, what are the negative effects of something absorbing slower in your system because you didn't eat it close enough to your time frame?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So like we're supposed to eat like right after the activity, but if we don't.
Oh, if you don't, it just means that you're going to have a lower amount of replenishment of the glycogen.
So then it doesn't get up to that.
Right.
Okay.
That's right. Okay. Yes, sir.
from the internet. If you don't want to eat, if you want to burn fat, do you not eat the carbs before the match or before working out? How does that work?
If you want to burn fat, okay. So if you want to burn fat, we would just we would keep an eye on the total calories. So you would make sure that you would still have some energy level for this match. You would still have some of the carbohydrate in, but we wouldn't, maybe we would go more for the banana, which is a kind of a controlled portion, as opposed to the bagel, which is a 4-ounce portion, which is about 300 calories, whereas the banana is about 120. So, kind of go in that direction, right? So it's total calories that we would look at. Other questions? Yes, sir.
I had a couple games over my short career. That where a player had an insulin pump.
Yes.
Anything to watch for?
Yes.
Wasn't any problem.
Yeah. Well, if they are running, hopefully they have looked at their, had some experience with how they are reacting to it. And some people even can actually just disconnect their pump during, just even stop their basal rate. I can answer this question because I'm a diabetes educator in addition to being a dietitian, but some people can just disconnect their pump during that time frame. Other people would just need to gauge, and they might need to just drop their basal rate a little bit. Okay, and they might still need to make a tiny bolus for the carbohydrate, but then they would do. So as far as what to watch for, everybody's, when a person with type 1 diabetes has a reaction, it can be very different. I've known some people that just kept moving, and their blood sugar, they should have been sitting on the ground going beep, 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 like this, when their blood sugar's 40 and they're still moving. And it's like, how do you do that? Okay, so, and then other people feel lows when they're at 65. So it's very individual, but yeah, the biggest thing to notice to catch it most quickly is disorientation. If they are not able to put 2 and 2 together and get 4 in whatever context you're working with, then that is a good time for them to check their blood sugar. I hope I answered your question. Yes. Yes, sir.
Cramps. How to avoid? Only hydration or cramps?
Like leg cramps. Yeah. Oh, leg cramps. There's 1,000,001 recommendations for those. I've even heard things as crazy as drinking pickle juice and, just all sorts of strange stuff. To me, the most important thing is to make sure that your minerals are on board when you're eating your normal meals. Make sure you're getting your calcium and your magnesium and all those things, which basically means eating a nice varied diet, that you're eating your greens and you're eating your beans and you're eating those sorts of things, and then you'll get the minerals that you need.
Follow that. What about time?
Yeah, see, those are things that there is so much information that isn't backed up by data out there. So there's a lot of crazy stuff. Basically, I don't have a good answer for what to do with leg cramps. Preventing them, as far as I'm concerned, is just making sure that your diet is in good shape.
All right.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very kindly.
Eddie, can you give us a number? Between 1 and 40?
1 and 40, 25.
Bob Cruder? Guillermo, can we get another number?
28.
28. No, one more.
One more? 30.
Brian McMahon. Ryan here? For Ryan and Bob, your association dues are gonna be paid by the association.
If you're watching online, watch the comment box below, okay? So we know you're here. Other than that, good.
The first payroll is gonna be this Wednesday. He's processing it tonight. Some of you will get it tomorrow. But the majority should have it by Wednesday. And the next payroll will be on the first week of October. You'll also find our financial reports attached to Arbiter along with the minutes. And Daniela brought to my attention that we thought of Rajan's wife and we thought of Mike Stone. We did not remember that today is September 11th. So she asked if we can do another moment of silence for September 11th. We'll go ahead and do that now. Okay, we have no unfinished business. Any new business? Good and welfare? Motion to adjourn? Seconded. Have a good evening.